Welcome to another Bible translation review, where we take a look at Bible translations from the standpoint of the original languages. How well do translations represent the underlying Hebrew, Greek, or Aramaic texts? Let's find out. My name is David Colo, and today I'm going to talk about the Berean Standard Bible, which you can find at BibleHub.com. I started looking at the BSB out of sheer curiosity, and found something rather shocking. The BSB is not a translation. Let me repeat that just so we're clear. The BSB is not a translation. A translation starts with this: a biblical text in its original language. It then proceeds to spend a lot of time trying to understand what that language means and how to communicate that in English. That is not how the BSB was created. Now, usually when you have a Bible that is not a translation, it is a revision of a translation. For example, the NRSV is a revision of the RSV. The RSV is a revision of the ASV. The ASV is a revision of several revisions of the KJV. You get the idea. But the BSB is also not a revision. So what is it? I feel like we need a new category for this, so I'm going to create one. Let's call the BSB a patchwork Bible, or maybe a cut and paste Bible. Every verse is a patchwork of phrases copied and pasted word for word from other major translations. Let me show you what I mean. So let's pretend that we had 3 different Bible translations, and let's say we wanted to copy and paste different parts that we liked best: the prophecy from NIV, which Habakkuk the prophet from King James, and perceived from the ISV. We could put all that together and the result would be a totally fake translation: the prophecy which Habakkuk the prophet perceived. There you go, a brand new Bible, just as good as anyone else's, and you can use it for free. You can go verse by verse through the whole Berean Standard Bible and find every word or phrase that was taken from other translations. Here's Habakkuk 1:1, for example. This is the burden that Habakkuk the prophet received in a vision. Now, every single one of these words and phrases could be very different. Something as simple as the phrase, that Habakkuk the prophet, could be that the prophet Habakkuk, or which the prophet Habakkuk, or which Habakkuk the prophet, or you could even change the order of the words: the prophet Habakkuk's burden, or Habakkuk the prophet's burden. You get the idea. The BSB doesn't use any unique or different words. It doesn't order the words or phrases differently. The only thing it does is make sure there is consistency in the use of punctuation and uppercase and lowercase letters. In fact, there is almost nothing original in the BSB. But don't take my word for it. Take Dr. Gary Hill's word, one of the men primarily responsible for the Berean Standard Bible.
Yes, I had the privilege of coming on the Bible Hub team about 10 years ago as an academic contributor. And as the years went along, we saw that we needed another translation that was not meant to be novel. And the goal was, let's not try to do something novel. Let's preserve the best of what is preceded. So our goal was to line up all those essentially literal translations that have serve the body of Christ through the decades and centuries, and to make a close, careful comparison of them. Well, first of all, by letting the best of tradition come forward and valuing what you see, this close comparison of all the essentially literal texts, we wanted to humbly stand on the shoulders of those who preceded us, get a consensual view of how they all flow together, not depart from those lines, but one of an open resource, eclectic nature, and reverently assembled, careful to preserve the best of the past, and then update it.
So using Dr. Hill's own words, the BSB is an eclectic text assembled from a close comparison of essentially literal translations that is not meant to depart from them or do something novel, but to preserve what Hill and his associates thought was best among them and update the language when necessary. None of these words or descriptions describe what translation work is. This is essentially plagiarism on a massive scale. I don't know how Bible Hub is going to get away with it, but I guarantee you if they start making big money on their Bible, they are going to be sued faster than you can finish watching this video. So how well does the BSB reflect the original languages? I mean, that's what this video series is all about, right? Well, since the goal of the BSB was not to make a translation that better reflects the original language, we have to look at what English text was chosen versus what English texts were not chosen, and see if those choices were good or bad. So let's start with Habakkuk 1:1. Here you can see that the BSB chose the English term burden for the Hebrew word masah. In many texts, masah refers to the load, haul, or encumbrance carried by people or pack animals. For that reason, early English translators rendered masah in Habakkuk 1:1 as burden. But virtually no modern translation does that in Habakkuk 1:1. They use words like message, pronouncement, oracle, prophecy, charge, that sort of thing. So did the BSB make the right choice when it rejected the modern renderings of masah in Habakkuk 1:1? No, it didn't. Why not? Because it failed to understand that the word masah can have different meanings in different contexts. Just like when I say I love ice cream and I love my wife. I'm using the same word, but in two totally different ways. When masah is used in a prophetic text to indicate a kind of divine speech, it has a different sense than when it is used to describe a load that is carried. Out of all the English choices available to Dr. Hill and his colleagues, burden was the worst choice. Now let's take a look at Habakkuk 1:2. Here you can see that the Berean Standard Bible copied and pasted the phrase "you do not hear" from the NASB. Now there's two primary ways that you can translate the verb. You can translate the verb hear or listen. To say "you do not listen" means that someone is purposely not paying attention. To say "you do not hear" means that someone is deaf or too far away. If Habakkuk thought that God was deaf or too far away to hear, he wouldn't be talking to him. So clearly Habakkuk is saying that God is purposely not paying attention. In other words, he is not listening. Again, the BSB chose the worst translation among those English translations available. Now let's take a look at Habakkuk 1:3. Here we see that the BSB copied and pasted "Why do you tolerate wrongdoing" from the Christian Standard Bible. We know that because there are many ways to represent the Hebrew, but only one translation says it in that specific way. So what other options are there? Other translations say things like, "Cause me to behold," "Make me look at," "Why do you countenance?" "Why do you look upon?" There are lots of options. So did the BSB choose the better one? The Hebrew verb there is navat. It's a synonym of the previous verb to see. It refers to looking, seeing, watching, and observing. And in that capacity, it can also mean to trust, regard, or pay attention to. In no place does it mean to tolerate. If we judge the BSB by what text it chose to copy and paste versus what text it chose not to copy and paste, we find very quickly that it makes the wrong choices. Not all the time, obviously. But it's clear to me as a Bible translator that very little thought has gone into choosing a text that best makes sense of the words in the original language, or even sometimes in the English language. So I have to give the Berean Standard Bible from BibleHub.com 1 out of 5 stars.